Alright, so now I'm going to cover link building. Now, link building is the most important and the most difficult aspect of SEO. So I've split it up into a few different videos. And in this one, I'm just going to cover three things. I'm going to explain what link building is and why it's important. Then I'm going to go over how to build links, really basic introduction of it. And then I'm going to go over how not to build links. I'm going to show you some typical beginner mistakes that are just going to waste your time and your money, so you might as well avoid them because they are completely useless. So to start, link building is simply the act of getting other websites to link to you. If you want to be sure you know what a link is, here I'm on the New York Times website, and they've got a link here to a website called parkwiz.com. And if you click on it, you go to that parkwiz.com page. So that's what a link is. And they're important because they are by far the most important factor search engines use when evaluating web pages. Now, back in the mid to late 90s, search engines weren't very effective because they were easy to game. Essentially, they just looked at the text on the page. So if you wanted to work for a keyword like personal finance, you could just repeat the word personal finance over and over and over again. So they didn't work very well, and a better system was needed. So in the late 90s, an engineer at Stanford University named Larry Page invented a system that basically looked at all the links on the web and analyzed them to figure out the relationships between websites. And the idea was that if you have a website like CNN.com that is being linked to by a lot of other websites, that suggests that CNN is really important. And the guys over at Google, they did a really good job of figuring out which links were important and which weren't. So for example, if you have some random website that isn't linked to or connected to any other website and that links to CNN, that's just not going to give CNN much of a boost. But if you have a big major website like, let's say, or MLB.com, the Major League Baseball website, and they link to CNN.com, that's a more important link because MLB.com has got a lot of other links pointing to it. And basically, you're going to want to get a lot of links pointed to your website, and you want links from websites that are already highly regarded in search engines. So like a CNN, because it has so many links pointed to it, if they give you a link in an article or whatnot, that would be really useful. That would be seen as being important in the eyes of Google. And the other thing that's important about building links is the anchor text. So the anchor text is the, I'm going to show you an example here. The anchor text is the actual text that is linked to you. So in this example here that I was talking about, a link to parkwiz.com, they actually linked with parkwiz.com. It's a parking site, so maybe a more ideal anchor text would be like park here or buy parking here, but it's still a good link to have a link from the New York Times. Alright, so let's talk about building links. Now, there's a lot of material you could cover within the subject of building links, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to cover the basic strategies that the most popular websites are using to get their links. Now, the key point here is that none of these are easy. It's always going to be difficult to get quality links. If it were ever easy to get any of these links, then Google would stop paying attention to them as a quality indicator. Google pays close attention to the links pointing to your website because they're hard to get, which makes them a good indicator of quality. So right now I'm looking at a website called Airbnb, and I brought them up because they are a startup that has been doing just fantastic. They started, I guess, a few years ago now, and they've taken more than $100 million in venture capital money, and they've gotten a lot of links. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the most important domains that are linking to them, and I'm using a tool called OpenSiteExplorer.org. It's made by a pretty famous SEO company called SEO Moz, and basically it's just going to rank the importance of domains that are linking to Airbnb.com. We see the first one is Twitter. We can talk about social media later, but basically the main important page is just the Airbnb page on Twitter. It has a link. And then we see Yahoo. So there's a couple articles like on the financially fit subdomain. They've got some articles about Airbnb, so that's nice. So there's press attention. New York Times, bunch of articles and blogs about Airbnb. That's press attention. MSN, not working. WordPress, bunch of blogs on WordPress linking to Airbnb, so that's press attention like I'm talking about. CNN.com, you see Bloomberg, you see USA Today, you see Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Tumblr, that's just basically a bunch of different blogs, Wired. So I'm showing you this as an example because it's a good example. A lot of websites are getting links from blogs or media outlets as their primary source of quality links. So another good way to get links is with great content. Let me show you an example here of what's known as an infographic. If you've ever seen one of these, they're usually pretty well designed. This is one on a blog called TechCrunch that was created by a company called MobClicks. So basically, this company MobClicks spent a bunch of time and money to create this beautiful looking infographic that has some information about I guess the mobile world and what's going on in the mobile space. And these are just known to be fairly widely circulated, and it links back to MobClicks. So basically MobClicks is using this as a way to get press attention. So a bunch of other things you can do in the framework of just getting great content, but this is something that's really popular right now. And there's actually a company called Visually, that's VISUAL.LY, that will help you make infographics if that's something you think you might be interested in. I haven't worked with them before, but I've heard a bunch of good things. Basically, they take a lot of the time and cost out of building an infographic if you don't have much experience with that. And the guys who started this, they worked at Mint.com and did a lot of great infographics there, so that's just one little tip. Another way to get links is to put great content on your own blog. Again, this is one of those things that's really hard to do, but I'm using an example here of a company called 37signals.com. They're based in Chicago. They make web software, and they're really successful. They have a really successful blog because they've put a lot of time and effort into it over several years, and about once a week, maybe twice a week, they'll put out a really well-written blog post that is relevant to their industry. And over the years, they've slowly but surely built up their audience. So it's fairly easy for them to get links to their blog because it's been a high-quality blog consistently week in and week out for several years. Another way to get links is to leverage business relationships. I'm going to show you one example here. It's a website called iab.net. It's basically an industry group. It stands for the Internet Advertising Bureau, and they link to all of the members of this group. And you can't see it, but this is a page that has a page rank of 5, which is pretty high. All these companies like Facebook and Federated Media and FindTheBest.com are getting a great link just because they're part of this organization.